Which, by the way, still half that is wonderful. Good job. Good on you for being worth $500 million. Meanwhile, my van broke down upstairs.
Welcome back to the Chasing Mountains podcast. Today we are talking about America's youngest self-made female billionaire, Rihanna.
Man, that's so much money. $1 billion. 1,000 million.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
But before we do that, we've got a couple of updates, right?
Yep. So while Rihanna's being a billionaire, my van broke down in front of his driveway. My brakes went out. Like if your brakes are going to go out, thank God it wasn't going down the highway. Literally, as I'm pulling up to his driveway, my brake pedal goes straight to the floor. And I'm like, whoop, 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 that ain't good. And then I had to use my parking brake to slow down and not hit his truck. But anyways, while she's being a billionaire, balling out.
I'm not sure, though, how much I like you careening towards my home with no brakes either. Like,
well, it wasn't on purpose. It's my old work van. And I guess she's due for an update.
What else is going on?
Bro, we hit 14,000, almost 200 subscribers.
That's crazy.
That's crazy.
We never thought that in just a few months' time. Yeah. Like, that's outrageous.
Oh, so thank you, everybody. And over 12 million views. Mm-hmm. And we've only been a YouTube channel for almost 2 months.
In the grand scheme of things, that's not very much at all.
No.
But it is a faster pace than we had intended for or had hoped for, I guess.
We had hoped for 10,000 in the whole year. As you start a podcast, as everybody knows, it's slow growth. But we really dove into the YouTube shorts and we figured that would be a good way to expose, our channel. But we didn't think we'd get 14,000. And, our next goal, I think for the end of the year is going to be 50,000. So that's what we're heading for. Yeah. Going to be producing as much content as possible, see what works, see what people like. So let us know. And
we do we appreciate the feedback. Like we have seen that people do seem to really like the shorts. Those are almost exclusively, I don't really do much on those, but Jacob makes those to answer those questions. We've had people ask like who's our editor, but that's this guy.
That's me. So. And everybody's asking me like what program I use. I use DaVinci Resolve. I got really frustrated with Adobe and everything was crashing on Adobe. And then Adobe's prices keep going up.
Which you've used Adobe for years, for a long time.
I had an entire marketing agency that used all Adobe. And then they switched over to the subscription model where they charge you monthly, which sounds good in the beginning. They're like, ooh, $25 and I can get all this stuff. But they've constantly updated the price. Now I'm paying almost like 60 or 70, and that's a small package. And then for an actual agency, we're talking about hundreds and hundreds a month. And it crashes all the time. It feels like a prosumer product. And I switched to DaVinci a couple of years ago, and man, I have not gone back. It is a wonderful program.
You've loved it. I was hoping you could also give them the update on the financial impact for us of having a viral short, and then kind of what we've chosen to do as a result of that.
Yeah. So we did a short on Mr. Beast and Elon Musk, a little bit of a banter between the two of them on Twitter. Kind of did it in just a fun way. And it got 12 million views. And apparently you get paid from YouTube shorts. And so we're going to actually do a short a little bit about how much money we made from that short. So 12 million views.
So we're going to do a short talking about shorts?
Exactly. And I'll be in shorts.
We're wearing shorts. Okay.
Exactly. But no, for real, you can get paid from YouTube for the shorts. It's not very much money. I think people will be surprised on 12 million views. You think it's going to be a lot of money, but it is not. But because of that, we did make some money. And in doing so, we realized we're going to take this hobby right here, this podcast, and we actually turned it into a company. Now, we've both started companies before. Why? Why would we wrap it up in an LLC, which just the other night, we just started our LLC, Chasing Mountains Media. Why would we do that?
Yeah, mainly the tax benefits, and also to limit our liability. It allows us to, you hear people talk about writing things off all the time. Well, what they mean by that is you can reduce the amount of taxable income. So when we're spending money on microphones, cameras, there's a long list, but of things that we currently are spending it on and want to spend more on to bring more and better content. But we want to be able to write that all off and therefore reduce any kind of taxable income. So when money comes in from YouTube or from other sources as a result of what we're doing here, then we want to, be able to limit our tax obligation. So, and then also limit our liability legally, just in case
because
somebody says something dumb.
I say stupid stuff all the time. What did you call it, Bobby?
We both
Dumbassery?
Dumbassness.
Dumbassness. That's very factual.
Yeah, that's
Business Pro.
I'm curious if one day we'll get sued for that. That'll
Yeah.
be like Chasing Mountains Media sued for dumbassness.
Dumbassness. So like, for example, we're going to buy a button that says Business Pro. Every time someone does something cool, we slap it Business Pro. We can write that button off, because otherwise if
That's awesome.
it's awesome. Let's just say I spent $25 on a button. Well, if that's my money, it comes out of my personal bank account. I'm already pre-taxed on that money.
Yeah.
Well, if it comes into the company account, I can write that $25 off because it is an expense to the company. And if it fits within the correct category, you don't have to pay taxes on that because it went out into the economy. Anyways, and so there's plenty of things coming through. And not only just that, accounting. It's so much easier when it's not your bank account. Things are coming out, my bank account, who paid for what.
Yeah, as like a partnership in what we're doing here, it'll be easier to manage those funds versus trying to include our personal accounts.
And coming up, we're going to be traveling and hopefully write those expenses off. So,
but one of the things, as far as that goes too, like one of the things that we're kind of excited about and have recently decided to do as a result of all of this is that we want to kind of take you guys along for the ride. So if you've ever been curious about what it looks like to start a podcast, what it looks like to start a YouTube channel, we're doing both at the same time using some of our previous experiences. So, we're like Jake said, we're going to be creating a short and probably some other content regarding, what we got paid for our YouTube shorts. We'll talk a little bit more about the LLC and kind of how we're arranging things, but not necessarily today. This is probably, I guess, the extent of it, but we want you guys to know that we're going to kind of try to bring you along for the ride so you can kind of see how that goes and what we find works and what we find doesn't.
Oh, and later on, probably this month, we're going to crush a few cars. Like, I know that doesn't sound like a podcasting thing, but it's kind of like talking about side hustles and how to make money in kind of a recessionary time. And I happen to have access to a couple cars of mine that are trashed. They don't function. So it's like, how do you make money off of trash cars?
Your van was trying to join that list.
Oh my Lord.
Recently.
Yeah. No,
but that'll be primarily, I think, maybe exclusively YouTube content, not necessarily for those listening on the podcast. Check out the YouTube channel for that.
Yeah, it's weird that we have listeners on our podcast now. It's not just YouTube. So,
yeah, who are these people?
Yeah, if you want to see what we look like, I have a better head of hair than Dave does. So if you want to come see my luscious locks, you can come watch the podcast. AKA I'm bald and he has the great hair.
They might be surprised.
All right, well, let's get back to Rihanna. Sorry about that tangent.
No, it's good. It's fun. It's good news. It's cool.
Well, it makes sense. You've got a marketing background. I've got a marketing background, film background. We've both built YouTube channels. We've written music for years. We've produced content for years. Now we're going to start doing it for ourselves under the umbrella of the company Chasing Mountains Media.
Yeah. Which we've several podcasts ago, one of our first few podcasts, we talked about the concept of 10,000 hours, which if you don't know, not to get back into it really, but it's just this idea that you got to put in a certain amount of time and a certain skill set to find success with it. And we have very much done that in past businesses, past lives.
Like 30,000 hours.
But it's been mostly focused on other people's brands and other organizations. So that's one thing we're really excited about this, to kind of put that skill set, put that experience to work, to build this channel, build this podcast.
And build the brand.
We've got a lot of, our imagination has been running wild with all the things that we hope to do, on YouTube, on your favorite podcast streaming platform, but also much, much further beyond. So, so all that and more coming.
Yeah.
Stick with us. Join us for the ride. We're really excited.
It's going to be cool. Back to Rihanna.
Let's talk about Rihanna.
Dude, I did not know her name was Robin Rihanna Fenty.
Yeah.
And the way I can remember her name, Fenty, is because my favorite drink at Starbucks was a venti iced caramel macchiato. So that's the only way I've ever been able to remember her name is like Fenty. Oh, Fenty, yes.
Well, so a lot of people they don't know that is her last name. And so when she started her beauty brand, which we'll talk about, in her lingerie brand, it has Fenty in the name. And a lot of people, I guess, didn't know that was her name also.
Yeah. And I think a lot of people also probably would have assumed that she got this rich from her music. And it's really brilliant how she's been able to blend her music with her companies and the partners she's been working with. So why don't you give a little synopsis of her?
Rihanna's a singer, actress, businesswoman, fashion designer, mother as of May. And
Congrats.
Most recently, Forbes' youngest self-made female billionaire at 34 years old, with a net worth of $1.4 billion. She's Barbados' first billionaire, and because she's originally from there, and she's the world's richest female musician. Rihanna valued at $1.4 billion. Let me give you some other names. Kylie Jenner, $600 million. Taylor Swift, $570 million. Beyonce, $450 million. Kim Kardashian, she is the only one close. She's at $1.8 billion. So she's over.
Wow. That's also because she has part ownership of Yeezy.
Yeah. And other stuff.
And many other things.
Yeah. Reese Witherspoon, $430 million. Serena Williams, $260 million.
Wow.
Sandra Bullock, $225 million. Madonna, $575 million. Kris Jenner, $230 million. In my mind, hearing some of those names and some of the values, that makes it that much more impressive. $1.4 billion in net worth when Taylor Swift is less than half that. Beyonce, less than half that. Serena Williams, less than a quarter of that. Madonna is still less than half that. She's a big time musician who's been doing that for a long time.
Which, by the way, still half that is wonderful. Good job. Good on you for being worth $500 million. Meanwhile, my van broke down upstairs.
Yeah, I don't mean to put that down, but I'm just saying
it's on her.
Yeah. She was born and raised in Barbados. She was discovered by American record producer Evan Rogers, who invited her to the United States to record demo tapes.
Can you imagine that? Like, hey, you're wonderful. You got the look.
That's the dream. If you're in another country, if you're from Barbados and there's like an American record producer, yeah, come back with me. I'm going to make you famous.
What a stroke of luck. Obviously, she had the talent.
Yeah.
But man.
After signing with Def Jam in 2005, she released 2 studio albums with a heavy Caribbean music influence. Again, that's where she's from. And they landed within the top 10 of the US Billboard 200 chart. But it was in 2007. It was her third album, Good Girl Gone Bad. That made her a global superstar with the chart-topping single Umbrella, which we all know and love, and a whole bunch of other
sorry for
songs.
singing, guys. That was awful. But my goodness,
you can actually sing
when that song came out, though, man, that was just a hit.
It earned her first Grammy Award.
Did it really?
Yep.
I mean, how could it not? That thing was on the radio nonstop. That was back when radio was where it was at. If it was on the radio, you were successful.
Yeah, and I didn't realize how many of her songs that I knew and loved. In preparing to talk about her, I went back and just pulled up Spotify, like best of the best.
Like
Rihanna.
Guilty Pleasures, kind of I love this song and I don't want to tell anyone.
Yeah, well, it kept hitting. I was just like, it went song after song, and I'm like, oh yeah, this is awesome. But I also didn't really realize until doing that how many collaborations she's had with a whole bunch of different artists.
But that goes back to Def Jam Records.
Is that why?
Well, yes, because they signed her to a 6-album deal when she was 16.
Wow.
First off, that's an entire career. I don't know if I would have ever signed a 6-album deal.
So has she released 6 albums?
I believe so.
I don't know if she was
But
out
that's a lot. And I hope
that was wise of Def Jam.
It was wise. I mean, obviously they invested in her, but the thing is, at the time, Jay-Z was the guy overseeing Def Jam. So when she came in, across from the table was Jay-Z saying, basically, sign this. And of course, you're like, yeah, sure, bro.
It worked out.
It worked out well for her.
It doesn't always, but
how many times has it been where people signed a 6-album deal and then they end up not liking the deal? Then they end up, okay, I've got 3 albums that are good, but I've got 3 more to go. And then they kind of rush through the remainder 3 and then they lose all their fans. They're out of the contract, but you know, so she's done it right. And they paired her with amazing talent.
Yeah, she's collabed with Jay-Z, as you said. That was the first on my list. But Eminem, Calvin Harris, Kanye, Coldplay, Drake, T.I., Paul McCartney.
Oh, really?
Yeah, she did that song.
Oh, yes, with Kanye.
Yes. Yeah.
Man, what's the name of that song?
Yeah, I don't know. It'll come to me. Britney Spears, Shakira, and more. She's had over 250 million records sold worldwide, 14 number ones. She's the second best-selling female music artist of all time. 31 top 10 in the U.S. and 30 top 10 entries in the U.K. for songs. 9 Grammy Awards, 13 American Music Awards, 12 Billboard Music Awards, 6 Guinness World Records, the NAACP's President's Award. Time named her one of the 100 most influential people in the world in 2012 and 2018. Forbes ranked her among the top 10 highest paid celebrities in 2012 and 2014. That's just music. And there's a whole bunch of other stuff she's done outside of that. Brand deals, creating beauty brands, fashion brands. It was amazing to me, honestly, to see all of these things that she's done, because you don't really realize she truly is one of the best. one of the best in the business.
She makes you feel lazy because like I worked like a 95-hour week last week and I still feel lazy looking up the stuff she does. She'll be doing a photo shoot at 10, a second photo shoot at 2:30. She's got a concert at 8:00 that night. Meanwhile, she's going to then fly back home to be with her. It's crazy looking at some of their schedules. I'm telling you, man, it's impressive, but she didn't just let that be it. She and her team have realized that there's just other opportunities off of this fame, off of this success. At one point in time, you know that song Shine Bright Like a Diamond? She actually teamed up with a jewelry making company and made a ton of money off of that. So it was in the commercial. So she got paid sync licensing for it.
Her song was in the
commercial.
Yeah.
And then she got a percentage of the diamonds. So when they sold, so she made a ton of money off of that. And it just goes to show when you have an audience and they value your opinion and you really like something and share something and you've got good taste, people will buy. So the record industry has changed a lot. Back in the day, they would just sell albums, t-shirts, and tour. And albums would sell millions.
Real quick, before you talk about the record industry, just so people understand too, like Jake has had a Billboard Top 100 song. You've owned a record label. You've managed artists. You've performed when you were much younger. Performed with your band internationally. So you've worked. We both have worked through your company with like Warner Music. We've worked with 300 Entertainment out of New York. We've worked with worked with Sony artists. And I guess my wife is a touring musician. That like we both go on the road with her and play, in front of thousands of people, opening for big name artists. So like,
I'm not just Googled this stuff.
Right. So I'm excited to kind of talk about some of this stuff because it comes from a place of experience, especially for you. So that said, go.
Yeah, no, thank you.
Talk about the record industry.
I guess I should have told people that I know a little bit about it, but it's changing and it's changed so much within the last 15 years. Back in the day, when you would record an album, you would have a physical copy of it. People could only hear that copy if they bought it from you or they bootlegged it. And it was kind of hard to bootleg things back then. And so when you would sell an album, an actual physical album, and you would sell millions of them, you would make millions of dollars. You'd have a single go out, and yes, it might only have made you 45 cents back then, but it cost a few cents to make, and there's just so much profit. That's all they had to do. They just tour. Yes, there were some endorsement deals, but they didn't really care. There was so much money being made. The record labels made so much money off of touring and the album.
And touring was a big moneymaker.
Big, because you couldn't see it on YouTube. You couldn't see it on TV. You could only see that person maybe on some late night show once, but you had to go see them. So there was so much money. But now you can stream everything. You can listen to everything for free, basically. So how do you make money off of that? And it comes down to, yes, there's like a critical mass thing where it's like now you have, instead of a few million people listening to you, you might actually have 1 billion people who know who you are. And so what that does is it gives you an opportunity to make money in a different way. So yes, you may not make near as much money as you used to by just streams, but Rihanna is a perfect example of taking that fame, taking that connection, teaming up with other brands, starting a company, and then now that audience is your customer.
Yeah.
If you are a musician and you don't know that now, you need to understand you'll be in trouble if you really think you're going to only make money off of the music itself.
Rihanna was kind of a trailblazer as far as that goes. Like now in kind of 2022 social media land, every celebrity wants to kind of have their own brand, and like beauty brands are pretty common. But she kind of stands out from some of the others, and we can talk about that. But she was doing what we've talked about on the show before, which is basically using success to bring more success, using the money you've made to make more money. And, she, instead of spending everything that she earned on this lavish lifestyle, now she earned enough.
She balls out in her own right.
She has earned enough to both live the lavish lifestyle and reinvest, but it's that reinvestment piece that has really paid off for her. In big ways. But she was doing this pretty early on. Like she worked in 2011, she was doing brand deals with Armani. In 2014, she became the creative director for Puma, the brand. And she became the face of the brand of Dior in 2015. She was actually the first Black woman to be the face of that brand. She also had brand deals with Budweiser, Kodak, Nivea, many more. And she released several successful fragrance lines during that time too. And like,
do you think that those are mostly just partnering up with people?
Yeah.
Like slapping a label on something?
Yep. But she, when I say successful fragrance lines, it's like to the tune of like $80 million.
Wow. And
she also was the co-owner of Tidal, the music streaming service. But, to give credit where credit's due, she was pretty young in 2011. She was pretty, she started in music, as we said, really young. So it was probably the record label management team, a lot of those folks that guided her, based on what we know and what we've seen with other artists. There's some really, really smart people that work with artists, manage this type of thing so that the artist can really focus on being an artist and doing what they do really well.
Well, labels, and I don't know if this happened for her, but the labels try to do what's called a 360 deal, where it's like, okay, we're not making money off of albums anymore. So what we're going to do is we get a piece of everything.
Yep.
If we're making you famous, so if you're on a TV show, we make money.
Yep.
If you go on tour, we make money. If you make a brand deal, we make money. Same thing with management. Management does it. Record labels do it. So it's kind of a predatory
it can be
industry.
Yeah.
And when you have someone good in your corner, it's awesome. It's surprising how none of that is actually regulated at all.
Yeah.
You can make a 16-year-old sign a deal that they have no clue what they're signing, and they got them for the next 10 years. Obviously, it worked out great for her.
Do you want to talk about Tidal for a second? I said she was a co-owner of Tidal, Tidal. If you don't know, music streaming service. It was kind of attempting to be like a Spotify or, Apple Music.
And I think they're branding off the fact that it's higher quality than just a normal MP3. For the young kids, originally, MP3s sounded like trash. What people would do is they would compress a WAV file, which is a higher quality, into an MP3. And then you'd share it with your friend, and they would then compress it again into an MP3. Then they put it on their iPhone, which would compress it again and again and again. Next thing you know,
then they'd upload it to like Napster.
Yeah, Napster. And then you're downloading something from Napster, and it just sounds like you're listening to it on the phone.
Yeah.
And
not good.
So having a high quality streaming site was important back in the day. Now Spotify has stepped it up a bunch, and it's pretty decent. And so same thing with Apple. But Tidal was, I think it was originally a tech play by some other people, and they ended up teaming up with like Jay-Z, Beyonce, the guys from Coldplay, and had them buy into the company so that they could say, it's by musicians for musicians. But there was a little bit of a kickback. It still felt like there wasn't enough money to go around. There wasn't really enough streams on it. And at the end of the day, the money that was being made was being split with the top 1% of musicians. So there was a lot of kickback. I, for one, I didn't really use Tidal only because
I've never used it. Yeah.
Only because back in the day I couldn't afford the bandwidth on my phone. Just that many gigs of high quality songs. So, and I think back then that's what maybe some stuff they struggled with. People were limited to 1 or 2 gigs a month, and downloading songs that might take that up in a couple of days. It was, it's still around. I think they might have sold out to another bigger company. A foreign company.
But I don't know. I don't know the most recent. That's why
I'm not, my dad is like about 5 years old, but
you're what?
My data.
Oh, I thought you said your dad is 5 years old. I was very confused about that. I know your dad, and I'm pretty sure he's not 5 years old.
Yeah.
I have further questions about you and your age then too.
I'm 2.
But it's a very strange podcast all of a sudden.
Well, one thing too is like at a young age, she could sing. She's beautiful. We talk about privilege in the world. It really helps being just a really good looking person, because, if they throw my ugly mug up on some beauty shelf, no one's buying that. You know what I mean? But
she's someone who, if we're being honest about performers, especially superstar performers, there's kind of 3 elements that go into that, which is the music. Like, is it good music, and can they sing it and perform it well? Mm-hmm. But then there's also the beauty component. Mm-hmm. Are they easy to look at them? And then what about like the fashion? Like that's pretty common that, performers are going to have varying degrees of larger than life fashion. Yeah. So, to see somebody sort of exploit that and go on to, as Rihanna did, and we can talk about this, but go on to put out a beauty brand and fashion brand, like great. It's awesome. It's really,
I first off, I don't want to say I'm discounting the fact of how hard she works. Yes. I said she's beautiful, but like it's
synergy.
It's synergy. Works hard, sings well, looks good, and also is teamed up with the right people. And that leads into the mega star that she is.
Yeah. Let me tell you about Fenty Beauty and Fenty Skin. This is from their website. This is the About Us on their website. It says Rihanna was inspired to create Fenty Beauty and Fenty Skin after years of experimenting with the best of the best in beauty, and is still seeing a void in the industry for products that performed across all skin types and tones. So that's a good point. She has, I mean, I have to think she has used the best of the best. Like she has probably somebody doing her makeup every night. You know, she's constantly on, like, in front of the camera, in front of people, getting photographs. So there's for sure some experience there. It goes on to say, starting with Fenty Beauty Foundation, face primer, and gloss bomb, she launched a makeup line, quote, so that people everywhere would be included.
Right. Because don't they have like over 40 different, like, what's it called?
I think it's like 100.
Foundation.
Oh, yeah, maybe. She's got like 150 products or something.
Right. But like, so the problem is like when you would go into just a normal beauty store, it might only cater to a certain skin tone from this shade to this shade. And she really wanted to be inclusive in the fact of like, hey, everybody has different skin tones. They shouldn't be trying to mix and match themselves to try to get what works. And she came up with a 40, I think, at the beginning. 40.
I think that's right.
Yeah. I don't know anything about makeup. So,
but to that point, that's it. It says they focus on a wide range of traditionally hard to match skin tones, creating formulas that work for all skin types and pinpointing universal shades. So yeah, sure.
And it's gluten-free and soy-free and cruelty-free. So it's like, I know she had mentioned she had issues with the makeup causing irritation of her skins. And so
I think that's like far more common with women than maybe is shared. I think I think makeup historically has caused skin issues for a lot of women, but there's never been anything better.
A sick, vicious loop. It's like, oh, you want to put some makeup on? Cool. You put too much on, and then all of a sudden it's like, then you need to wear the makeup. And so it's like, if it gives you pimples, then you want to cover it up, and then it's like a vicious cycle.
Yeah. I found this kind of interesting that so she's got I think 50% stake in the Fenty Beauty, Fenty Skin. But it's like parent company is a company named Kendo, which is then also owned by an organization called LVMH. And so as I kind of got further into this, I learned that there are what they call like beauty brand incubators. And that's like what some of these companies are. And there's layers upon layers of these companies that own others. It's kind of like banking, actually. You know, a lot of the bank that you bank at is often owned by a bank that's owned by a bank that's owned by a bank. Oh, yeah. So they apparently like buy into these like startup brands, whether it's celebrities or somebody else, and can grow them from there. And you know, it's kind of like a venture capital thing that's specifically for beauty brands, I guess. So she then started Savage X Fenty, which is, as I said, lingerie and underwear line for men and women. Also has the Fenty name. So she's doing this thing on purpose where anything that's not related to music, because she's like a Madonna in that she has her one name, Rihanna, as her brand for music. But to differentiate, anything that's not music has that Fenty name in it. So Savage X Fenty, meanwhile, is this, is essentially the fashion company. But she's the 30%. She has a 30% stake in that. Again, I'm not sure whether she like kind of took it upon herself or someone approached her, or whether she, how that deal worked out. But it's a line that was created for very diverse people of all shapes and sizes, and she uses models of all shapes and sizes to promote the products as well. She's done some really unique marketing and branding pieces of content. With people like basically full fashion shows that look like really elaborate music videos.
Oh, cool.
With like choreographed dances and like in multiple layers of buildings. Like it sort of reminded me of, remember when Justin Timberlake did that collaboration with
Chris Stapleton.
Chris Stapleton, thank you. And they had the camera, it was supposed to look like a continuous shot through the whole building and the whole facility and everything. And it was, I remember us talking about some of the techniques that they did, which was really cool. But yeah, they did something like that. And what I saw was like a POV drone, point of view drone, where it's, people don't know, it's people that wear the headsets and they drive around. And
they're
like,
really tiny, fast drones.
Yeah. Anytime you see basically like fast, tight, interior continuous shots that are clearly not a person, there are these really, really cool POV drones. But Yeah, she used those. So like really cool marketing. I guess that's my point. Like really cool ways of marketing and getting the name out there. And she didn't necessarily have to rely on anybody else's fashion show. It wasn't like it was someone's show and she just entered Rihanna's, line of fashion in there. She did it herself.
It's a girl from Barbados and got discovered at 16, rock and rolled her career. How many Grammys was she? It was like 6 or 8?
13?
Oh my Lord.
9. Sorry, 9.
So 9 Grammys. So she's a success. Most people would have hung up their hat and just chillaxed on a beach for the rest of their life. And she decided to then
She's
open
got 6 world records too.
Wow. And then she decides to open up Fenty beauty brand, and it's in Sephora everywhere, catering to people who most of the time might have been overlooked. Mm-hmm. And then she opens up or starts or co-creates this company. Would you say something X Fenty?
Yeah, Savage X Fenty. That's the fashion brand.
And an underwear or fashion brand, I should say, that caters to all shapes and sizes. So kind of brilliant how she focuses on just people who might be forgotten, and it's turned her into worth $1 billion. That's pretty impressive.
Yeah, and just kind of like an intellectual property piece. I thought this was kind of interesting too. Talking about that Fenty brand, she actually filed a lawsuit against her father, Ronald Fenty, over the use of the Fenty name for commercial purposes. And the lawsuit alleges that
he's like, "Girl, I gave you that name."
Well, more than that, the lawsuit alleges Rihanna's cosmetics brand Fenty Beauty was damaged commercially by her father's company, Fenty Entertainment, through misrepresentation of his company being affiliated with her. So apparently, whether intentional or not, there was this sort of impression that was being put out by Fenty Entertainment, his company, that he was part of that branding. So she apparently dropped the lawsuit last year, but
because I know she's from a broken family. I think when she was 14 years old, they separated, and I mean that's weird. He was trying to capitalize on it. Hopefully, he wasn't going like, "Hey, I made my daughter famous. Sign on with me."
Yeah,
But man, very impressive career. And it's not over. She's still young. 34 years old.
Yeah.
And
yeah, I mean, so like, what do you think our takeaways are here? I mean, for me, I think I would say they mostly revolve around this idea of, if you're really happy with what you've done and where you've ended up and your success, think about what could happen if you put that success to further work. If you leverage that success, leverage that income, leverage the revenue that you've created and reinvested that into new ventures outside of your own maybe core competency. If you have the courage, if you surround yourself with good people, and you take on this challenge of like looking elsewhere for success, looking elsewhere for other revenue streams. For me, that's the big lesson, the big takeaway here is leverage your success into more success. What do you think?
No, 100%. That's kind of my takeaway. It's chasing that mountain.
That's why I went.
No pun intended.
That's why I went first.
No.
So I can steal it. I thought you might have the same.
No, you can settle. A lot of times we humans think, well, it's safe to stop right here. It's safe to settle. This worked out well. It's not going to happen again. Lightning in a bottle is not going to happen again.
Which would have been easy to do because she made several hundred millions in just her music career. Yeah. So,
and nobody would have faulted her at all for being like, hey, I'm done. I saw an interview where she said, look, it's not really about the money. Like the money has been nice, but it's about the drive, the challenging oneself, the always pushing that limit. And I think she really does. She's 34. What's she going to do in the next 10 years?
Yeah.
She might actually take that worth $1.4 billion and actually have 1.4 in the bank one day.
Well, and when you factor in the time value of money, which is something we should talk about at some point, I think that's most people are familiar with it to some degree, but you've probably heard it talked about in terms of like investing for retirement. Mm-hmm. If anybody's, like if you've looked at like 401k trajectories and stuff, if you invest at like 20 versus at 30 or at 40, the difference is exponential.
Compounding interest is powerful.
Yes. So at 34, she's worth 1.4 billion. Her ability to grow that wealth versus someone at 54, a lot of the successful business folks that we talk about that are, that are billionaires are quite a bit older.
Yeah.
And it took them much longer to get there, and their ability to grow that wealth even further, is is limited because they don't have as much time for that money to grow and for their investments to pan out. So truly anywhere, sky's the limit for her at this point.
I have a prediction, and then we can wrap this up.
Yeah.
My prediction is a lot of the people that loved her music when she was younger grew up with her, right? So a lot of the people who like were my age when she started coming out and being popular, I was younger, they grew up with her. So now she's having a kid, 34 years old. Other people are having kids around the same age. I predict that she'll actually come out with a children's brand of clothing it'll be baby clothing that's healthy, but also got some swag to it. It'll be beautiful. It'll be trendy. And I believe she'll come out with that and probably make even more money off of that because people spend stupid amount of money on their children. I know I do. And I know you do too.
Maybe you can be an investor with her.
I would totally invest.
You want her to join you in that venture? Tell her now.
I don't think she'd answer my call at all. Would you like a little bit of money? She's like, I spend that money in caviar a week. Shut up. I don't know if she eats caviar.
All right, fine. Well, Rihanna, you can have this idea. I'm sure it's already on her radar. It's a good prediction though.
I think she's going to do it. Yeah. Rihanna, she's cool. She
is cool.
Yeah. I would say just as you look at your life, and your life, even my life too. Look at what's being successful at the moment and how can you grow it? We talked about that this week of like, yes, the podcast is successful in its own small way. We understand 14,000 is still small, but we're always looking about what's that next thing we're going to hit? How do we apply success in other areas? Because we've hit 14,000, we're looking at sponsors. Sponsors are possibly interested. And then that goes on to the next level. With that money, we'll reinvest and we'll do this, we'll do that. So just always be looking, always chasing that mountain. All right. Thank you. We're Chasing Mountains podcast. Subscribe. We're desperate.
That's true. If we're going to build this thing up, we need subscribers.
Yes,
we need
sir.
views. We need people to join us in the fight, so to speak. So
we're out.
Thanks.
The thoughts and opinions on this show do not reflect those of our advertisers, employers, or other affiliates. The content should not be considered legal or financial advice. The Chasing Mountains podcast is a production of Chasing Mountains Media. Copyright 2022.